This is not just a name. This is a file.
Wow. I mean, that line hits you right away, doesn't it? It sets the tone immediately.
It really does. Because, usually when we talk about this subject about Jeffrey Epstein, we're conditioned to think about the
The
Manny.
face, the mugshot.
Exactly, the scandals, the headlines. But this deep dive, it's based on this piece of writing called The Hidden Ledger of Power. And right from the start, it's telling us to stop looking at the person and start looking at the paperwork.
Which is, I think, a much more uncomfortable place for people to look.
Why do you say that?
Well, because a man, a person, can be dismissed as, a monster, a bad apple.
Right.
You lock him up, or in this case, he dies, and you can sort of tell yourself, okay, problem solved. But a file, a ledger, that implies a system. It implies record keeping. And maybe most importantly, as the text says, it implies that this file made powerful people nervous.
And that's the hook, isn't it? That's why we're here today. We're not doing another biography. We're not just going to rehash all the sensational stuff we've all seen a million times.
Yeah.
The whole mission here is to really dig into the structural questions that this document brings up. It calls them unanswered questions, but honestly, reading it, they feel more like warnings.
Warning is exactly the right word. The source text it's fragmented, it feels urgent, it doesn't read like a history book at all.
No.
It reads more like an indictment, an indictment of this intersection between massive wealth, secrecy, and the justice system itself.
Well,
it makes us ask, how can a network like this even exist in plain sight?
okay, so let's start there with that plain sight idea. The document draws this really sharp line between the public face and the private reality. On the surface, what the world saw was Epstein as a wealthy financier.
Can we just pause on that term, financier?
Yeah, it's the standard label for him.
It is, but it's doing so much work in that sentence. I mean, in the context of this hidden ledger, that label is basically a shield. It's vague, it's clean, it suggests legitimacy, but it doesn't require any proof. If you say you're a doctor, you need a degree. If you say you're a financier, you just need to have a lot of money. It kind of stops people from asking the next question, which is, how did you get it?
And the text makes it really clear that all the trappings of his wealth were designed to just reinforce that shield. We have the list. Private jets, private islands, private meetings.
The operative word there being private, right?
It's 100%. And I think for most of us, private just means, exclusive. Champagne, VIP rooms.
Right.
But the way this piece frames it, private feels a lot more like sovereign.
Oh, that's a crucial distinction.
Yeah.
When you own the jet, you're not just flying comfortably, you're controlling the entire manifest.
You control who gets on, who gets off.
Exactly. And when you own the island, you're not just on vacation. You are, for all intents and purposes, the mayor, the police chief, the judge. The source suggests this wasn't a lifestyle. It was a perimeter.
A perimeter where the normal rules just didn't apply.
It was a jurisdiction of one.
The document uses this phrase, a life few could understand. It really paints this picture of him operating in a totally different dimension. But then it pivots. It says, behind closed doors, something darker was happening.
And this is where we get to the core metaphor of the whole piece.
The hidden ledger. It lists the evidence of this other reality. Flight logs, sealed documents, and connections that were just never fully explained.
Think about what a ledger is in accounting. You have the official books, right? The ones you show the government.
Sure.
But if you're running, let's say, a less than legal enterprise, you also have the hidden ledger. That's the one with the real debts, the real favors, the real leverage. The public story was the cooked books, the flight logs and sealed documents. That's the real accounting.
That phrase, sealed documents, just always gets me. I mean, we're talking about a legal system that's supposed to be built on openness on the public record.
Right.
But here, you have just piles and piles of paper that are blacked out, hidden.
And that's not an accident. That is the system at work. The flight logs are interesting. They're a physical footprint. But the sealed documents, that shows institutional buy-in to the secrecy. You need a judge to agree to seal a document.
Lawyers have to argue for it.
Exactly. The hidden ledger isn't some book Epstein kept in a safe. It's a collaborative effort with parts of the justice system to hide the truth.
Which takes us to maybe the boldest claim in the whole piece. It says, the Epstein file is not about rumors. It is about structural questions.
And I'm so glad you pointed that out, because it's so easy to get lost in all the internet noise, the conspiracy theories. The source just pushes all that aside. It says, forget that. Look at the architecture. Look at the holes in the official story.
And it gives us three massive questions. I want to go through them one by one because I think they completely dismantle this idea of him being just one bad guy.
Go ahead.
The first question it asks is, who protected him?
Yes. Let's sit with that. Who protected him? You do not run a global trafficking network for decades across multiple countries with very powerful people involved without some kind of shield.
It's not just that the law missed him. It implies the law was actively held back.
Or that the law was transactional. We've heard this term transactional immunity in his case history. The question, who protected him, suggests his freedom was bought, maybe not just with money, but with information.
That he was useful.
That he was useful to someone, or to many someones. He was an asset, not just a criminal. And that level of protection isn't an accident. It's systemic.
The second question is the one that just always gets me. Who funded his lifestyle?
The follow the money problem.
Yeah. We call him a financier, but as we said, it's a vague term. The text points out that for a guy with private jets and islands, the actual source of his capital is incredibly murky. He wasn't some titan of industry we all knew about.
Right. There was no Epstein ink on the stock market. With most billionaires, you can point to the factory, or the software, or the big trade that made them rich.
Yeah.
With him, it's a black box. So the question, who funded him, implies he might not have been the source of the wealth at all.
That he was managing it for other people.
Maybe. Or was he a front for people who couldn't show their faces? The source doesn't give an answer, but the silence around his money is it's deafening. It suggests he wasn't acting alone.
You don't get that rich in the shadows without powerful backers.
Exactly. And backers want a return on their investment. If that investment wasn't profit, then what was it? Leverage. Blackmail.
Which leads right into the third question, why were so many records hidden?
This is the cover-up. It shifts the focus from the crimes themselves to the cleanup operation that happened after.
It's one thing for a person to commit a crime. It's a whole other thing for the state to actively seal the records of that crime.
Precisely. This is where the hidden ledger becomes literal. Sealing records means the information inside was deemed too dangerous for us to see. And you have to ask, dangerous to who?
Right. Epstein's dead.
He can't be hurt by it anymore. So if the records are still sealed, they're protecting the living. They're protecting the network that outlived him. And that's the network that, as the source says, made powerful people nervous.
So you have this triad: protection, funding, and suppression. It paints a picture of a machine, not a man. But eventually, that machine seemed to glitch. We move to the arrest, the final days. The text is very specific. He's in a high-security jail.
High security. The irony in those words is just so thick you can feel it in the writing.
It really is, because what the text describes next is a cascade of errors. I mean, listen to this list altogether. Cameras failed, guards were absent, evidence disappeared.
Let's just think about the probability of that. In a high-security federal lockup, redundancy is everything. If one camera breaks, another one covers that angle.
Sure.
If a guard is on break, someone else covers the post. There are logs, there are checks. It is designed to be fail-safe.
So for the cameras to fail, and the guards to be gone, and the logs to be messed up, all at the exact same time in the exact same cell.
Housing the most high-profile prisoner in the entire country, it's not just improbable, it's a statistical miracle. Or it's not a failure at all.
The text notes the official verdict was suicide, but then it immediately puts that up against the public reaction. The public did not believe it.
And that's a really important moment. Usually the coroner's report is the end of the story, history is written. But here, the public's collective gut just said no.
Why do you think that refusal to believe was so powerful?
Because the story required you to suspend your disbelief way too much. And the text tells us why. Because when truth gets too close to power, it often gets buried. People know, deep down, how the world works. They know that if you or I were in that cell, those cameras would have been working perfectly. This just validates that cynicism. It connects his death directly back to that power dynamic.
It's basically saying, you're not crazy for thinking this is suspicious.
Exactly. If the hidden ledger threatened the most powerful people on the planet, and the guy holding it suddenly dies because of a series of glitches, well, you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to connect those dots. You just have to be a realist.
And that brings us to the source's take on the legacy here. Epstein, the man, is gone. But the source is clear. The file remains.
That is such a haunting line. The person is gone, but the leverage, the information, that ledger, it's still out there somewhere. It didn't just disappear with him.
And this leads to what the text calls the ultimate question. It's not just about what was in the file. The real mystery, it says, is why we were never meant to see it.
That reframes everything. It becomes about access. If we saw the file, we'd know who protected him. We'd know who funded him. We'd know why the records were sealed. The fact that we were never meant to see it implies there's a gatekeeper.
A two-tiered system.
The two-tiered system of truth. There's a level of reality that is strictly for the powerful, and the rest of us are actively and forcefully kept out. And the gatekeepers of that ledger are the same ones who, well, who made sure the cameras weren't working.
The text ends with this classification that I found really striking. It just says, this is not entertainment. This is a warning.
Yeah, that stopped me in my tracks. Because we consume a lot of true crime. We watch the documentaries, we listen to the podcasts.
Yeah.
It becomes content.
It's a story we tell ourselves.
But this source is like slapping us on the wrist. It's saying, don't consume this like a drama. Read it like a cautionary tale.
A warning about what, though?
A warning about the ability of extreme power to literally bend reality. A warning that if you have enough money and enough protection, you can rewrite the laws of physics inside a jail cell.
You can make cameras fail.
You can make guards disappear. You can make truth bury itself. It's a warning that the institutions we are taught to trust, the courts, the prisons, they're not solid. They're permeable. They can be bought.
That's grim. It turns this from a crime story into, I don't know, a horror story about the very structure of our society.
It does. It suggests the hidden ledger isn't just Epstein's little black book. It's the operating manual for a certain class of global power. And we're all just living in the world that Ledger built.
So let's just recap this journey we've gone on through the hidden ledger of power. We started on the surface, the private jets, the financier mask.
The facade.
Right, the facade. Then we went behind the curtain to the flight logs and the sealed documents.
Reality.
We look at those three big questions: protection, funding, hidden records.
The network. The ledger itself.
And then we went to the end. The high-security jail that wasn't secure, the failed cameras, the absent guards.
The failure. Or maybe the success, depending on your point of view.
And finally, the legacy. The public's disbelief and this warning that it's all about how power can bury truth.
The lesson.
It all comes back to that one theme. The story of Jeffrey Epstein isn't just about one depraved man. It's a case study in the hidden ledger of power.
It's a demonstration of how the entire system can bend or even break when enough pressure is applied from the very top.
So here's the final thought I want to leave you with, pulling directly from the source. The text describes a cascade of errors in that jail cell. Cameras failing, guards gone, evidence vanishing. We usually call those things glitches or mistakes, incompetence.
Right.
But I want you to ask yourself this. If the final outcome was the exact thing that the powerful people who were nervous about the file wanted, were those really mistakes? Or were those glitches the system working exactly as it was intended to?
That is the question. When the result perfectly served the interest of power, can you really call it an accident?
A disturbing thought to end on, but one that the source absolutely demands we consider.
Absolutely. Stay curious, everyone.
And keep questioning the narrative. Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
Take care.